Mr. Mandia, there are many groups, Chinese and others, that try to come into American companies, American media groups. There was an attack on the New York Times, of course. Out of all of these different groups, how did you begin to focus in on this one that you're calling APT1, or Advanced Persistent Threat Number 1?
As we were being hired to respond to computer intrusions, we ran into APT1 again and again and again. So we started observing and orienting the APT1 just because of the volume of the attacks they were doing.
And how did you narrow them down then to a specific neighborhood just outside of downtown Shanghai?
After responding to APT1 for years, at over 100 different organizations, you start to pick up patterns, such as over 98% of the time when they were committing a computer intrusion, they're using the mainland Chinese character set. Over 98% of the time when they were doing their intrusions into US companies, they were also using IP addresses from Shanghai. So I call 98% not an anomaly. At the same time, we're always doing open source researching, and what we had learned is there's a unit 61398, that's chartered with hiring people that can speak English and be able to exploit networks and know computer security. And we thought that was an interesting combination. And that unit just so happens to be located in the same region of Shanghai where we're tracking over 90% of the connections coming from.
What you're saying is that what many people saw as a shadowy Chinese group is actually part of the People's Liberation Army.
Well, I would think it is, and it's taking direction from the PLA. And that's why we've released this report, is there's all this public disclosure now that it's China behind lots of these intrusions. I think it's also very important for folks to realize it's not just freelance people in China doing these attacks, it's attacks directed by the government. So that means these attacks can be more advanced, they can be more funded, they can be more pervasive, and they will probably continue unabated. It could be the new normal.
Now, one of the things you have done in the course of the research that ended up in the report that you're releasing is that you have actually watched some of these members of comment crew come into systems, and you have watched screens get manipulated as that's happened.
Whenever we respond to an intrusion, we need to really lock in on who these intruders are. So when there's a Chinese intrusion and we're monitoring, everything's in plain view, and we're at the victim sites, monitoring traffic coming in and out of the victim. So we're entitled to be there. It's okay that we're there. But it just so happens sometimes when the Chinese broke in, then they would go check their Gmail accounts. They would use the infrastructure from victim organizations to do some some private things or some other things that they would do during their normal workday. And we got to observe those things.
When these attackers come in, do you find that they are largely there to steal data, to steal intellectual property, or to take over systems and try to do some kind of an infrastructure attack?
It's my opinion, only from what I've observed over the last 8 or 9 years, it's my opinion that they're there to steal data. Now, that mission can always change, and one of the things that I've always observed is whether, with the Chinese, when they hack a system, they do have access to destroy things. They can crush the system, they can steal things, they can change things. But they've always operated with what I call rules of engagement. And they haven't, as far as I know, changed the integrity or the availability of the data. They've only changed the confidentiality of it. If the mission should change, they do have all the tools in place to be destructive.